Audio disclaimer for this particular episode. Just thought I'd tell the guys just to do it in a bit more casual format. Um, I don't know, I just wasn't feeling that great on that day, and I just thought I'd try and take it really slow and very casual. So you're probably going to be noticing some breaks in between, but yeah, I guess the overall feel of this movie was. Well, you'll see it in the next say hour and a bit. Secondly, as well, always a disclaimer that there'll be some swearing involved. So yeah, enjoy the show. First impressions, TK. First impressions.
Ooh, first impression as a as a movie for a sci-fi action, I did enjoy it.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Like, it wasn't boring, but yeah, yeah, for a sci-fi action film. Like, for me, first impressions when the first, I think, 7 or 8 minutes came out, like the score was coming in and the atmosphere, like the music and all that shit, and it was kind of dark. Sure, yeah, but then when it just kept going, and I'm like, oh, okay, like, mm, mm, you Goddard, what was your first impressions about it?
My first impressions were pretty much the same. I was sitting down and it started to feel like a Predator film with the drop pod incident, but then after that, it really didn't for me.
No, like the ships were like breaking through the space fabric of time and shit. I'm like, I've never known their ships to do that. Then again, I'd never followed the comics.
Yeah,
Because I'm just trying to think here of the from beginning to end. Because I saw it a couple. Because you and I got on. We saw it like a couple of days ago, and then TK, you saw it last night. Um, I'm trying to think about it in chronological order, and I actually have notes here. Like the first thing that bothered me, like they're taking bets on saving hostages, the military. I'm like, that ain't funny. Like that's legit, like unprofessional, right?
yeah. Well, from my memory, I'm probably wrong, but I seem to remember in the first trailers, they were meant to be mercenaries. I'd thought because one of the lines they changed, if I'm remembering correctly, was where mercenaries isn't being a threat kind of the whole point.
I thought he meant like snipers or something, or I don't know. I never, I don't think I ever remember him saying mercenaries, but if it was, I'm just like, wow. There wasn't really any story to why they
Yeah.
were even there anyway when they were in Mexico or some shit.
Yeah. If it is how I remember it, it might not be. That sort of it makes sense if they were mercenaries and the whole mercenary shtick, but yeah,
Yeah, they just want.
there seemed to be a fair bit of the script changed after the first trailer.
Oh yeah, and then as the trailers went by, and I'm like, the last trailer. Did you ever watch the trailers, TK?
Yeah, it did, and I'm actually on par with Goddard. Like the first trailer they did release, it did give that kind of feel that the military guys were mercenaries. So that was my expectancy when I was actually going into it, and I was a little bit let down with that because I thought a mercenary ploy would have played really nicely.
Oh, because they were doing it all. Because then they could go with the angle for doing it all for money or some shit.
And just pure like their own survival instead of just being a whole, oh, we're soldiers, we need to do this. Like a mercenary reel being like, oh shit, we need to survive, we better kill this motherfucker, would have been to me a bit more value for my own money.
And get some money for themselves. Um, okay, let's see if we can try and. Okay, what are the good things that people remember? We'll start with you, TK. Like, what are the good things that you think about them that are like the good stuff?
Oh, the good stuff probably that that first predator interaction. That to me, like, it gave it a really good set, and like it really took me back to the original Predator film. The whole jungle survival,
Yes,
gory death scene, hanging from trees,
yes,
what the hell's going on kind of moment, and that set like the really good precipice. And all the predator kills after that were really gory, which I really enjoyed because it took me back to that whole late 80s, early 90s nostalgia sci-fi gore that I
yes.
loved. Um, Probably another favorite part, I have to give Thomas Jane a little bit of credit here. He's role as Baxley, I absolutely love from start to finish. He sold that whole Tourette's guy, suffering ex-military PTSD, but then at the end when he finally like clicked into gear and he got that old soldier mode back, I thought he'd done that brilliantly. So I've got to give props to him.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, actually, I'll agree with that, considering I've forgotten most of the fucking characters' names, which I shouldn't, but I did. So, in you, Goddard, is there any sort of I don't know, stuff that you liked about the film? 'Cause I just want to get this out of the way.
Yeah, I did like how the opening reminded me of the Predator. I didn't even think of that really, but yeah, it is very much like Predator One and bits and pieces of Predator Two. And yeah, I hadn't even thought about Baxley with that whole. He does play a very good Tourette's character, which yes, yeah. So really, my opinion's the same. Although I didn't realize it until you actually said what you said.
So we're pretty much in all agreements that the whole beginning was like good, but was there anything else that stood out for any of you?
Not positively.
Well, okay, we'll go into the not positive soon because I've got a list. But like, what about like positive stuff? Anybody? No.
I will give a little nod. I'll give one little extra positive nod. The the Predator dogs.
Ah,
I'll give a bit of credit there, but the whole reason I'm going to give a bit of credit here was the lead up to the Predator dogs. You see the pit bull with the little McKenna boy. I can't remember his
yes,
first
McKenna boy,
name. The
Rory.
McKenna boy. He sees the pit bull. The Pred dogs come. You see like that little loyalty between dog and boy, where the dog sticks by him until everyone else shows up, and then the dog's like, "Fuck this shit, I'm out of here," and we don't really see what happens to him.
I had the same thing.
Yeah, yep. But later on, when the Pred dog, starts hanging around with them and essentially allying with them, I thought that was a really good play to the whole genetic splice, because more than likely those dogs did have some dog DNA in them, and I thought that was a little nod to dog is man's best friend. So I will give that a little tick as well.
Okay, okay, but there's nothing else from anybody else.
I don't remember being disappointed by the way that they used guns. I don't remember somebody firing too many bullets from a 6-shooter or anything.
Oh, like continuity wise for weapon play and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I can totally agree with that. But any other positives? Oh
I
no.
don't think so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like visually, it did okay. Like
That's the
some of the
thing, though. Yeah.
CGI left begging for more,
Ugh.
particularly with the Mr. Big Boy that I'd like
Oh
to
yeah.
point out. Some of his CGI was a bit of a letdown, but
Oh my
apart
god.
from that, some parts were really good. Like
That's
the
one of the things.
aircraft shield was good, but yeah.
Okay, yeah, we'll get onto that because I actually haven't revealed my ones. For me, looking at my list here, the nostalgia definitely relating to the previous films. They they put in some frames of the previous old films, like the previous Predator from Predator One. They mentioned 1997. They mentioned, which is Predator Two. They mentioned 1987. Then they mentioned they had that nostalgia with Gary Busey's kid. Well, not Gary Busey, but it is Gary Busey's kid playing the son of Keys, which was the dad that was with Danny Glover in Predator 2. He's like, guess who's back? And then he gets cut in half. Um, that was a nice throwback. I think the other. Let's have a look here. Oh god, hold on. Come on now. Shit, my list is not dropping. What the hell? Oh, okay. And I think I gotta admit, like, I really liked. I mean, there wasn't a lot of females in this movie. Like, you have Olivia Munn and then Yvonne Strahovski. Like, Strahovski was really good, and I thought that she'd have a It was a pleasant surprise to see her. But I'll talk about it. I'll talk a bit about her later. But other than that, Oh, the music as well was a good kickback as well. All right, now I'm just gonna rip into it. All right, guys, what is the bad stuff that stands out to you? I'm gonna start with Freshie TK. I say Freshie because you saw it last night.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Um, okay, for me, really, I can understand wanting to move a franchise in a different direction, but to tear down the entire fabric of that lore of the predators being a hunter race to now being conquerors and genetic splicers, I cannot buy it. I'm sorry. I just call bullshit on that and needs to go in the trash can.
Totally agree. You got it.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Like I know they touched on the whole clan versus clan battles in the last Predators,
which was
which
cool.
which was cool. It was good to see a little bit of infighting, but infighting to the point of being like, yeah, let's just start mixing DNA to make ourselves stronger when we haven't needed to before. It just doesn't fly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and you. Okay, yeah. Well, okay, that's part of this. That's part of the storyline, which is a really good thing to mention because, for me, let's expand on that. Like, Shane Black, director, did Iron Man 3, did that one with Ryan Gosling and New Zealanders, or now adopted Australian, Russell Crowe movie, The Good Guys, and Shane Black was in the first Predator. You would think naturally or possibly that he would have followed the director. I think it was McTiernan who did the first one. You would think that he would follow his formula to a sort of degree, but I mean, he didn't. You're right. There should be some sort of evolution. It's 2018. But the only thing, or the several things that I hated about his iteration for this one was comedy, the child, and just a really washed up script. Like the dialogue, man. Sweet Jesus, the dialogue.
Can we just talk about that whole, what was it, 1 minute and 15 seconds where they were talking about why it's called a predator when it's not really defined as a predator?
Yeah.
What
Ridiculous.
was that when they were when Olivia Munn's character just walks in and it's like, oh, they're having that argument, and it's just like, oh yeah, we all agreed that it should be the predator. Oh yeah, fuck yeah.
Yeah, we took a poll and agreed it sounded badass. No. That was just so painful to watch.
It was cringy, and then they did it a second time later when they're in the hotel room, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's just like, why is that even in there? Is that just his own way of saying, yeah, bitches, this is mine now? Or what was his attempt to trying to humor us? I don't know.
No, I don't know either. What about you, Gottard? Like, did you find that like really strange that he? I mean, this is just one of many dialogues that I thought was fucking weird, and I've got a list of dialogue choices that they did. But what did you think of that?
Yeah, the dialogue, like in the cinema, I did remark to you,
That
which
was the
is
first
something
thing.
I like never do, which was what was it? I said the script was written by a moron. I think that's what I said.
That was pretty accurate. Yes.
Nice.
And it's just there was so many things that didn't make sense. There was a lot of things that were straight out false, and yeah, the that whole bit, like it felt drawn out, and it was just stupid.
And just like the comedy as well, like the comedy, I'm probably the only one out of possibly several thousand, and I'm sure again I have to use this argument, just like I did with the Last Jedi. There's a certain amount of people that, there's a minority amount of people that see things that they disagree with. Otherwise, the masses really like the Last Jedi, but that's a different topic altogether. But one of the things that or the other thing that I didn't like based on that point was um, like oh, in relating to the comedy for the Predator, was like Iron Man 3. I'm probably one of the like minority kind of people that just didn't like that movie because it was just way too many jokes. The music sounded like comical. In terms of like the end credits, it just felt like there was, and then the kid was involved, and I'm like, and he's got, I don't know, it just felt way too comical. and it applies for this movie as well. I mean, too much comedy bits, like, um, definitely that one where she's about to leave, and he has Tourette's and he's talking about pussy, and I'm like, it was kind of like that joke from the first movie where Shane Black did. Do you guys remember the first movie he did that pussy joke?
I can't remember it.
He goes to Billy. Hey Billy, I was going down on my girlfriend, and I said, "Boy, you got a big pussy. Boy, you got a big pussy." And Billy's just looking at him, and he's like, "Oh, because like there's like an echo, you know." And then Billy just starts laughing. Like that joke always falls flat with me, even when I watch the movie. I'm just like, that's fucking awful. It's not even funny. And then he brought that comedy into this. I'm just like, it, it just doesn't suit the tone of the movie because with evolutioning predators and all that stuff, mysterious, gory, hunters, quiet and all that crap and stealthy. But then it's just like there's these comedy shit elements to it. Like one of the predators told them to drop their weapons just by pointing to the ground with his finger. Do you remember that?
Yes.
I did, yes.
And I was just like, okay. Now, don't get me wrong, that's not comedy, but I'm just like, okay, the predator, like, he knows them quite well or something. I That was a little bit off-putting, but I'm like, okay, it's kind of cool. But what was off-putting was the predators talking to each other and the subtitles, and I'm like, I was a little bit miffed by that. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah. Also, the fact that the computer just translated it what he wanted to say perfectly.
Yeah, and then he's like, and then the guy's like, oh, what is that noise? Oh, my ears. Oh, he's using the translator. How the fuck do you know that?
There were so many logic jumps in that film that were just ridiculous.
Like the universe comment?
Oh, that wasn't a logic jump. That was Jesus.
He didn't like that one, TK.
Oh,
Oh no, I didn't like it either. I just saw no point to that.
She said something like, oh, it's bigger than the universe or some shit. I'm like, how do you fucking know that? You're an evolutionary
yeah.
biologist.
The
You're not a physicist.
the biologist made a comment that a galaxy was bigger than the universe.
Or some shit.
The whole point of the word universe is uni, all encompassing, verse. Like, universe refers to the entirety of existence, but she thinks that a galaxy is bigger?
That's because she's a biologist.
Evolutionary biologist.
I know plenty of biologists. They're not stupid.
I'll tell you what,
Yeah.
though. Like, some of the stuff that they threw back, like, with the nostalgia was, in a sense, bad. Like, I mentioned earlier, like, about the music and stuff. It was good in the beginning, but then they just kept on rehashing it hard. Like, really, really, really rehashing it. The music, and then the lines. Like, she goes up to the predator that's on the table, and then she just goes, "You beautiful motherfucker," and I'm just like, huh?
Yeah, it made no sense. It didn't fit her vocal styles at all. Like, and who would think that that thing is beautiful? Let's face it.
Yeah, no, not at all.
No, it just didn't make any sense. And then kind of quirky, but still kind of lame. Get to the choppers. The motorcycles. I'm like this
Yeah, the motorcycles that came out of nowhere and then vanished.
came out of nowhere, parked outside of a secret government facility. If you even can even consider it as government.
Let alone secretive.
No, not really. But like, yeah, it's just the events that were really contrived by it. Like, I'm nitpicking, and I'm going to nitpick hard because it was just a mess. It was a real mess of a movie. It was just messy.
But you know, like the scene that actually, when I finally saw it, literally was a punch in the face to say, guess what, guys, this is going to be terrible from here on out. Was when they were going through the little secret service center, the whole secret underground base, the terrible lift joke, which didn't need to be there.
Oh my
But
god,
then,
that was
yes,
fucking
continue
dumb.
the terrible jokes, yes. And he's like, and the fact that he's just responded every fucking time, like, didn't need that there. Don't know why they did that. They could have just literally lowered the lift bin in there. But the part that really, that little Easter egg that said this is going to be shit, I hope he's ready for it, was when they looked in the mirror and they saw the xenomorph spear that was made in Alien vs Predator. That part there said to me, guess what, guys? We're gonna be that shit.
Like it was connecting to the AVP universe. I actually didn't see that. Did you, Gottard?
I did notice it, but I didn't immediately think that it was going to be a bad thing necessarily.
I didn't make that connection.
But
Yeah.
it was long before that I'd given up on the film.
Pretty much. It was like maybe like 10 or 15 minutes in. Like, okay, the action and all that stuff. But then the guy, like. Okay, here's another. Okay, if we have to go into like. Really. One bit that I completely forgot or just bypassed in terms of story and nitpicking was. He sent alien evidence back to his home. Like the artifacts.
Yeah. You did comment on that. I can't remember whether it was in the cinema or
It was
afterwards.
probably in the cinema because I was like flabbergasted.
Yeah, it makes sense to me because, as he says, it's evidence. So the idea being that he would be locked up in a facility and deemed insane, and then suddenly he's like, but look, and pulls up this evidence which he'd sent home. That makes sense, but, like, seeing as he didn't see the alien die, and you can be pretty sure that the alien would go for the technology you just stole.
Well, yeah, I guess, but I just found it weird that he did that and sent it home. Like, I don't know. I definitely don't think that's one of those. Maybe I'm just I don't know. I'm just connecting it to real life a bit too much on that one, but it just felt weird that he sent it home like that. I don't know. Like I said, I'm nitpicking.
Yeah, fair enough.
I think the other thing that I found really strange was the CG. The CG for Brutus Predator, or I'll call him Brutus or some shit, because the thing is, at one stage he had like the security strut. You know how security guards have that strut when they posture up?
Yes.
Like you've seen him, TK, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah, so like he had that strut at one stage. I'm just like, okay, Brutus, like you're gonna kick him out of the club now. Just like what the fuck? But the CG just didn't work well with me. I don't think, at all.
Yeah, the CG, like, the costumes and the puppets were good, but anything
Yes.
CG, except the dogs, they put a lot of work into the dogs, strangely. Everything else was actually quite subpar.
I'll have to agree on that as well.
Yeah, no, definitely put more effort into the dogs than anything.
Yeah, and then the dog, that arc was a little weird. It felt as if like they wanted to put that dog in because of the previous Predator movie, which I want to touch base on like in a few moments. But um, the other thing that really blew my mind was the deduction that the biologist had, and then the guy, what's his name, Sterling K. Brown, Traeger, like they just knew everything. Like it was weird. Like as a plot device or something. Like they just knew everything. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, especially seeing as uh, the biggest one, I think, was when the second predator shows up and kills the first predator, and they didn't know there was a second predator or anything, but they literally watch the footage of that happen, and he turns and says, the first one must have been a traitor, and he must have been taking us a weapon that he doesn't want us to have. It's like, you haven't found the ship or anything. How do you know that there's anything on the ship? How do you know there is a ship? Maybe he just came in a drop pod.
How do you know he was a traitor? Like that shit just bewilders me. That and yeah, they talk about the traitor, the hunter, and then talking about the ship, and then at one stage, he's like, hey kid, how do you use the mask? He's like, He's like, you did it that one time at the house. I'm like, how did you know he did it at the house?
And I'm
Yeah,
not even going to touch on that mask anymore because that's another thing that really arced me off was a mask that self protects and is self aware. To me, does not sit to what a predator would actually use on a hunt itself. They wouldn't want something that's going to give them an overall upper edge. It's all about honor and about getting that perfect kill. So that mask did not sit well with me.
yeah, no. Also, the older Predator technology, the original mask, which I don't know how they retrieved, uh, can just remote desktop the new mask. How?
Yes, no.
That's actually a staple. Like in terms of when they look at yeah, like a remote mask where they can interconnect. But then again, that staple was only used. Sorry, that situation was only used. It's not a staple. It was only used in Alien vs Predator, where he needed to get a replay of what happened to the ship in Requiem. So he goes down to the damaged ship before destroying it, and he looks into a different mask, and he looks at the recording. But he has to, but that was from, I think that's where it originated from, but as per the movies from 1 and 2, they never had that kind of stuff. So AVP was the one that I believe created that particular piece of lore, but I have a feeling that's in comics as well, but I'm not even gonna confirm that because I haven't read the comics in freaking ages.
Yeah.
It's like nobody wants to talk. They're just like, it's just this shit.
It's just, yeah.
It's just one of
Just
those things, yeah, that you go on in like into the movie and you're like, oh, okay, and then it's like meh when you leave. Like you want your money back, you want your time back.
Yes. Unfortunately.
Like that thing, all right. If we're still talking about storyline, the storyline was weak, weak. What is it? Hybridization, evolution by taking spines from their kills and then evolutioning. Like, did anyone realize that Brutus Predator, when he broke into the home of Yvonne Strahovski, right, the Marine's wife, and we don't even know what happened to her after that. We don't know. I didn't just realize, but we don't know what happened to her after Brutus went into the home, right? Did you notice that when he was looking at the kid's desktop and all that shit, he didn't require a mask? Like he was doing magnification, he was looking at certain things and highlighting things with whatever, and it was all just with his eyes without the help of a mask at all.
Yeah, I did notice that. But also, earlier than that, there was the comment which is ridiculous. Did you see that? He just grew an exoskeleton underneath his skin. Well, then it's not an exoskeleton. Also, that goes to show that this thing has like nanotechnology in it. What?
Nanomachines. I didn't see that bit. I saw something like jut out from underneath his body, but I didn't know it was an exoskeleton.
Yeah, they actually. Yeah, there's dialogue about it, and it's just. Ugh.
Just brush it under the carpet. Just pretend it never happened.
Yeah. Especially seeing as later on he just gets shot up by bullets anyway, but only when it's convenient.
That's the other plot thing as well. Climate change. Predators taking the best specimens because they know Earth is about to die. Like, how in the shit did they deduce that? And I think it was both Olivia Munn's character, Casey Brackett, and then Sterling K. Brown's character, Traeger, who both deduced that. I'm just like, how the fuck do you know that?
Plus, they said it was one or two, more likely one generations before the world is uninhabitable by humans. Try 3, 4.
What, in real life?
Yeah.
That's really scary, actually.
But
Well,
even so,
generations these days are almost 100 years, so.
Oh, okay, cool.
I like that little thing. He's like, it's okay now. 100 years. That's cool.
Cool.
Yeah, 300-400 years, we'll be alright. We'll be long dead, hopefully.
That's fucking morbid, but yeah. I was gonna say it like that, but sure.
But look, the whole that plot point again, it just doesn't sit with the lore of the predators. Like, if a species was about to face extinction, I'm fairly sure, with confidence, that every leader on the predator planet would just be like, "Sweet, these guys are a good hunt. Let's just go for one big bang.
Ugh.
Oh yeah,
Ugh.
not that kind of bang.
The thing is, though, like, okay, okay, and let's not forget that we haven't touched base on this particular storyline. The boy, the boy has autism. Like, apparently he is the evolutionary key, and the predator wants the boy, and then she realizes is that he's an evolutionary like key to their being evolutionized better hunters and shit. I'm just like, uh,
Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, we all want the genome that when a fire alarm goes off at school that we're completely paralyzed.
is it possible though? Do people in terms of like my experiences with people with like disabilities such as autism is very 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 limited. I don't know about you guys in theory or in practicality, but do you think it's a plausible idea that an autistic kid could read different languages like he did and just figure out shit like so quickly?
No, uh, the there's a lot to it, but basically, autism doesn't predispose anyone towards a higher cognitive function at all. It does, in fact, depending on uh, the seriousness, the level of autism that you have, it actually tends to reduce your cognitive function. So a lot of it is just like uh, just myth, basically, which they've latched onto and decided is a good plot point.
And you, TK, anything to add to possibly that one?
Yeah, no, spot on with what Goddard said. Like, it's entirely dependent on where on the spectrum they fall. Like, yes, there are some who are on the spectrum who are incredibly gifted in certain aspects, but when it comes to learning different things, that's kind of where the struggle comes in. And that's where, really, as a plot point, it does kind of fall on its ass.
Not to mention that if you took all of the if you did a study checking children with autism or adults with autism, anyone with autism, and then you did the same thing with, uh, well, I say regular people, but people without autism, the percentage of them that would be above the intellectual level would be likely the same or less, not more.
Okay. Um, because the other thing as well is with with Autism Boy, or I should actually say the character's name is Rory McKenna. Um, his character, I think one of the shocking moments, or one of the shocking moments, because there's another one. One of the shocking moments that took me off guard was when Sterling K. Brown, you know, Traeger, the black scientist, the black whatever, the head of that particular group that's hunting the predators, um, when he knelt down in front of the kid and like just swore at him hard, like he said, like, "Oh, your dad has got to be the dumbest motherfucker on this planet." I'm just like, you're like swearing to a kid, dude. And then I realized at that time in the movie, man, there was so much cussing in this movie, like overly cussing, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it was excessive, and like I'd almost go so far to say half of it was actually the kid.
He cussed too, even though he had like he was supposed to play as autism, but he cussed too, and I'm just like, oh, this feels weird. Did you have any feelings towards that,
Yeah,
TK?
Yeah, no, I think the language was overused, particularly for the kid. It's just like, hang on, this kid's, young as anything, and it's pointed out that he's had basically no interaction with his father for quite a while. They don't give any time frame, but to me, it seems like he's got this hippie kind of mum who's like into painting things and very calm. Doesn't seem like that would really
Painting
suit
naked people, by the way,
painting naked people. Yes, that's why I got the
naked
whole
women.
hippie artist thing. But like, it doesn't sit right that this kid would cuss that much, considering the amount of interaction he has with mother and father. To me, I feel like he would have more of a kind nature than anything.
And then his bond with his dad was just out of place. But that was just again like they try to give you some plot points and trying to get you to even have a feeling for the characters, which was I don't know, it was weird. Like the cussing thing I found was really uncomfortable. It's like the same thing in real life. If you cuss so much, like you know how you get into arguments with people, especially here in where we are in Australia and stuff, like with bogans or yobbos and stuff like that. Like you hear them cuss, and cussing so much every second or third word is like it gives off like A, you're stupid, B, you've got nothing constructive to say, and C, your intellectual level must be below pond scum. Like that's what I felt with the movie.
Well, I don't disagree. Rather, I do disagree. Depending on the context, of course, I'm not going to start swearing in front of my grandmother, or my mother, indeed. Uh, but I myself, amongst friends, will curse quite a lot. It's just it. Context is a big thing, and there are a lot of situations where you just would not curse if you're, a reasonable person. I feel.
Okay, yeah, that's true. I do cuss among my friends as well, but I mean, at this point, like from a movie standpoint, even from like call me old fashioned, even from like shows, TV shows, like if we had to digress for a little bit, but it's the same principle. Like the new Titan DC Titans, is it a TV series? Like when Nightwing says "fuck Batman," I found that to be so out of place. It felt so unnecessary. It was like just in there for shock value. If anyone knows knows what I'm talking about.
I'm vaguely aware of the Titans, but yeah, there's
The new one,
comic books are a big place where
not live
swearing
action. I mean,
shouldn't be. Yeah, I know, but like the new Marvel films and things, swearing shouldn't be a big factor. Like
exactly.
it sort of tarnishes the image of the old comic books. I mean, there's the whole thing, the comic book code, for goodness sake.
Well, yeah, exactly. But like that's what I'm saying. When you use it excessively, it loses its impact. And it just sounds like just a bunch of I don't know. I have to agree with somebody that I heard when I watched a review after the movie on YouTube. It's like it sounds like a bunch of frat boys and a bunch of frat girls and frat children that are just swearing for the sake of swearing.
It very much did feel like that.
I don't know. Maybe I'm making a big deal about it, but it just I don't know. It didn't sit well with me. What about you, TK? What do you think of it?
Well, I think realistically, like, I agree with both of you to an extent. Like when Goddard says, depending on the context and where you are is where you apply it, and at the same time with yourself, certain situations, certain franchises, movies, and whatnot do it. So when looking at the movie, to me, if the cussing and swearing was kept just to the soldiers, it would have sat a lot better than literally having this little kid and this other female evolutionary biologist.
That's the one.
Just got to give you the title for it. Would have sat better than, as I said, we would have sat better just being the soldiers, being the swearers, because soldiers in the line of work, they're going to cuss a lot more because, hell, I mean, their job's
Stressful.
probably the worst in the world, and cussing is probably the best way to deal with it, especially the ones who are dealing with PTSD. That would have sat really well if they were all swearing a lot, and even if they even just decided to put a little nod in there, and every now and then, if one of them like dropped a swear word in front of the kid, and you have Senior McKenna say, "Hey, hey, hey," not in front of the kid, would have sat perfectly. Would have went down
Yes.
nicely. Not having
Yes.
the kid turn around and do it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It's those small little touches that could be that could be addressed. We don't have to know everything or whatever. Or excuse, excuse me, but you just want to have a I don't know some sort of acknowledgement for that, and I found that really strange. Like, yeah, I was waiting for him to be like, "Don't swear in front of my kid," blah 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 blah, but he's like, "Oh, okay, just do it." Which brings me to another point, which is Olivia Munn's character, the evolutionary biologist. Very, very cool, weird stuff. Like, she's just so unafraid of the predator. It never struck fear into her and all that stuff. And then, like, somewhere at the end, she manages to get a military rifle with a grenade launcher strapped underneath it, and she's using that, spraying that like she's used guns, and there's no talking about it at all. Like evolutionary biologists are just gun nuts. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely it didn't sit right.
Yeah, there was no context to it.
Like, don't get me wrong. It's not. It's not as if, again, same principle, different movie. I Am Legend. Like Will Smith's character is a scientist, but apparently at that time, which is now I think a prerequisite to standard military stuff, if you're a scientist, you got to have some sort of fucking basic sort of training. You got to be on the line. You would fired some guns. You gotta protect yourself. You can't just be like, help me. Like you got to handle a weapon. So as an evolutionary biologist, and I know she was supposed to be recruited by the government, she was just a badass. Nothing wrong with that. Don't get me wrong, nothing wrong with it. But I would have just liked to have like had a line thrown going, um, damn, for an evolutionary biologist, like you know how to fight, and it should be like, yeah, God, maybe not God bless the NRA, but be like, oh, okay, just all those times at the range are paying off or some shit. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that. But the thing is, though, that up until she had the man in the black suit who didn't show ID, didn't say where he was from, nothing like that. Just said, "I understand that you are
Like stargazing or some shit.
evolutionary biologist or whatever," and just took her away. That was the first time that the government had anything to do with her, and they tell you that the reason that the government picked her up, which she must have been told in the car, was that she wrote them a letter years ago saying that if they found any animals from space, she wanted to see them.
Yeah, but she was a kid.
And and that's how they choose their scientists. Surely you'd think that the government would go, okay, we need the top of the field evolutionary biologist, not, hey, this one sent us a letter and mentioned space animals.
It was a weird explanation, actually. Yeah. Now that you bring it up.
Yeah, but even saying that, the whole like line of her using weapons, again, there was a continuity issue there because at the very start, when the predator first got out and she was chasing it, she had the trank gun, got on the top of the bus, went to take a shot, got thrown off balance, and made the rookie mistake of shooting herself in the foot. Which to me
Yeah, she
was
did.
that really nicely. I'm like, okay, cool. She's an evolutionary biologist. That makes sense. She's not that great with a gun. Doesn't know how to take a finger off the trigger. But then all of a sudden, at the end, she's this badass firing automatic rounds. Like, no continuity there.
I'd completely forgotten that.
Yeah, because there was no continuity, studio interference, but we'll get into that in a second as well. Um, what there was a couple of other things as well. The last 2 points that I would probably say, just in terms of story, that last fight with Brutus Predator, so fucking uneventful, dude.
Yeah, it was. Plus, it was like he was conveniently invincible up until they'd already gotten
Plot
the
armor.
upper hand. Yeah.
Like I found it uneventful. Sorry, what were you saying, TK?
And let's just not forget the miraculous capability of Munn's character to travel what seemed to be at least 30, 40 miles in a series of 2 to 3 minutes to jump on Brutus's back at the last moment.
Yep.
I said that, but I didn't want to expand on it in the cinema. I'm just like, how the hell did she get there that fast?
Yeah, no, it didn't make sense. Like when she popped up, I'm like, straight away in my head, I'm just like, get fucked. No way.
It's like, yeah, it's like okay, fucking what's his name? What's the Jamaican guy? The Jamaican runner's name? Shit,
Usain Bolt.
that's the one. And it's like over roof. It's over like cliff faces and all that shit, and she just managed to get there in the nick of time.
Well, that's the thing. Like they showed a shot of her from behind, looking at the ship going down, and she's like looking clearly distressed because she's like, "Oh my god!" Like somehow she actually managed to see Trevor Knight Rhodes' character Nebraska jump in there and die from that distance. So obviously she's got amazing eyesight on top of everything else.
Oh my
But
god.
then all of a sudden, like she manages to get there to kind of like in a way sort of help save the day. It just I don't know. I'm like I know a lot of other people are going to pick that up and be like, no, no, no.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like her eyesight must be like fucking incredible. And then I think that again the joke at the very end. What are you? And then he's about to speak, and he goes, "Ah, shut the fuck up!" And he just like blasts his head, and I'm just like, "Then why did you ask the question?"
Yeah. And why did your 45 now punch him through the head instead of all those military-grade assault weapons that were shooting him in the head before?
That too, because as far as I remember, the design of Brutus, Predator, it's got a lot of flesh exposed. So, what were they firing rubber bullets at him? Were they still wanting to capture him? I thought they wanted to kill him. Which reminds me,
Yeah.
that dialogue when they're about to go out into the jungle and stuff, where he goes, when this is over, you and I are still you and I still gotta dance. And then Traeger goes back to him and goes, yeah, I'll bring my best shoes or some shit. And I rolled at that. I'm like, huh?
Yeah, like, it's hit the point where... Also, there was, like... It wasn't even a switch flipped. The Brutus alien sent out that transmission, and they're just like, instantly, yep, we're allies now. That was weird.
Oh, because he gave them a head start because he was going to hunt them.
Yeah, at which point, don't you... That ship has one entrance and one exit as far as you're aware. You're out here with all of this weaponry. Suit up. Watch the entrance.
Wow.
But instead they're like, hey, let's go run out into the forest where we know these things can outdo us.
Yeah, this thing that is an expert hunter in the jungle, which we already know because we already know about the first Predator, blah, 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 blah.
Which we're gonna definitely talk about the characters soon as well. The last part that I wanted to get in terms of storyline is the Predator killer.
Yeah.
Can we not?
I think we got it, man. It's like the first thing that I thought about it as it was wrapping around that scientist, Iron Man suit.
Yeah, the prodigal son.
In a different universe.
Yeah. Also, the fact that I swear, it was designed by some moody kid, like maybe 12 years old, because it's like, oh, it looks like the old one, but it's a robot, and it'll have 6 guns on the shoulder.
What did you think about it, TK? By all means, because I know you were just like,
Yeah, no. I went and saw it with a wife, and she can attest that moment that they came up, I literally slouched in my cinema chair and was like, I'm done.
I think I was done by like 30 minutes in. I was just like, what the fuck is going on? Because the deaths that happen. So in chronological order in terms of deaths, I believe it was, let's see, Lynch, Alfie Allen from Game of Thrones, who died first with his arm blown off. Like, any any feelings towards like their deaths? I mean, that's the first one, but any other deaths that you guys had any feelings towards, like, oh god, that shouldn't have happened or something like that?
Yes, 2.
Go ahead, tell me.
Jamaica, or whatever his name was.
Jamaica, Nebraska.
Nebraska, that's the one. When he falls on top of the shield, and then just decides that he's going to jump into the jet. Yeah, okay, I guess. But my issue with it was Nebraska, when he falls on the shield, before he looks back and jumps into the jet, coughs up blood.
Oh yeah,
But he'd taken no injuries, like, in the whole film. And then the second one is the other dude, the religious bloke, who just stood there shooting the shield as it encroached on him, and then just got his legs cut off. Yeah, he'd already seen 2 people avoid being killed by this shield already, and he still gets killed by it.
Yeah, Nettles was his character. What about you, TK? Any character deaths that you had any issues with, or just like, I don't know, anything?
Well, just touching on that first kill
with Alfie Allen.
With Lynch, that didn't seem necessary. Like, to blast his arm off, essentially at point blank range, when you're coming up to everyone and you are a predator. Like, to me, I felt like he could have just literally just to me, like, my ideal kill for that situation would have just been hand him back, rip out spine, wave it around, throw it at them, and be like, "Hey, bitches, I'm here."
That would have been amazing.
Because we don't even know what happened to his character afterwards. We probably just assume that he died from shock with losing his arm. But then again, if it was the same sort of blaster that he had on his shoulder, which it was, I think, from like the previous films, or it kind of looked like that same plasma energy, then the wound would have been cauterized. But who
Yeah, he's
knows?
probably just sitting there being like, "Guys, guys."
He probably would have been the other one that survived. But yeah, for me, I think the deaths. For me, it was uneventful. Like I told you at the very beginning, I couldn't even remember the characters' names, and I'm gonna reveal it now because I have two monitors. Like I've got one monitor showing the IMDb page of their character names because I just couldn't remember. Like for real, when I was recently watching the first movie, Predator One, right? I actually do remember caring for them when I initially got over the shock value because I watched it when I was a kid years and years ago. And then when I started like getting to like it and blah 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 and the tension and blah blah blah, then I realized the character, the director McTiernan, he managed to establish each character's role, uh, their their position in the movie, and then you sort of grew to care about them. I don't know if you guys ever felt the same one in Predator One.
I ain't got time to bleed.
That's the one. But yeah, did you ever feel that for Predator One? Any of you guys?
Yeah, definitely.
UTK?
Just kind of for a bit there. Be a quick recap there.
Oh, I was just saying that with Predator One, like in 20 minutes of or some ungodly small amount of time, the director McTiernan made it feel as if like you could care about the characters. He outlined their roles, he outlined their positions in the squad, and at some stage, like he even gave them some background a little bit, but it just made you care about them.
Oh yeah, not to mention, like in the first Predator, each of their deaths actually really represented those characters really well with how they actually went out.
Exactly. So like there was some sort of you had that you could sense the camaraderie in the movie, but then you're just like, oh, that sucked that Billy died. Oh, that sucked that what's his name? Fucking those well yeah, I've forgotten the names because I'm yeah, but you know what I mean. In this movie, sweet shit, like I just couldn't care. In terms of deaths though, when Thomas Jane and then what was it? Keegan Michael Key killed each other from one hanging from a branch all the way up airborne, and then one that's on the ground, and they just pistoled each other. I'm like, what the fuck was that about?
Well, that to me,
Yeah,
like that to me probably felt like the most genuine play to the characters to the characters' personalities in any other death of the movie. Because throughout the whole movie, you see those two really looking after each other.
Actually, yes.
Right. So naturally, for them to kill each other off, so they're not suffering and go out with a soldier's gun, that to me felt like the most genuine death to the characters than anyone else.
Okay, when you put it that way, okay, I'll have to agree with you. But initially, my initial impression of it, like, it shocked the hell out of me. I'm like, what the fuck? I was like, whoa.
yeah. I liked it too. It was the most genuine thing, I think. But I just couldn't go over. I couldn't get over how it was Key that was playing a, well, not serious character, but semi-serious character.
Oh, with his character Coyle, who kept on making all the pussy jokes and all that stuff.
Yeah, it was weird.
Because the other thing as well is, out of the character deaths, the really quick death was Traeger. You know, the black guy that was in the science lab that was swearing at the kid and stuff. He blew his own head off with the Predator shoulder blaster. Did anyone catch that?
Yeah, it was like maybe half a second, and then they just forgot about it.
Pretty much. You noticed that, right, TK? He blew his head off, his own head off.
Yeah, I think that was just his way of just saying I'm done with this film, just to get over with quickly.
I wasn't expecting it as like a really savage like comment like that, but probably like it was just such a dopey death. Like it was so quick.
Not to mention that up until that point, that plasma weapon had eaten through and then exploded many things and people. But then that time when he turns and looks at the biologist and shoots his own head off, no penetration.
No penetration to what? The
Well,
biologist?
surely he'd looked directly at the biologist and fired. Surely the shot would go through his head and hit the biologist.
Oh yeah, that's true. Cause yeah,
Yeah, no,
actually
I
that's
hadn't
true.
thought of that until now.
Actually, that's kind of true.
Good pick up.
Oh shit.
I'm a big fan of ballistics, and I was a physics student, so well, this isn't exactly physics, but yeah.
Because it's plasma-based energy and stuff like that, and I think they did mention something like that in the previous movies. Um, but yeah, I'm okay. The implications now that we're done about the characters and all that stuff. The implications of this movie. You mentioned it earlier before, TK. You thought that this is what is it like? It's a franchise killer, right?
Yeah, to be tied into the franchise is literally just destroying the fabric of it, in my opinion.
You got out.
I get the feeling, well, the first thing was at the start I was worried because I didn't recognize the producers. Um, like the company that produced it, I didn't recognize at all, which worried me. And then after the film, I couldn't help but feel that they must have sold the rights, and the people who bought it were just a B grade company.
It certainly felt that way, considering that I think somebody mentioned to me at my work who was saying that it felt like two movies were scrunched into one: Shane Black's movie and then Fox's vision for the movie. And I mean, outside, not talking about interference because there's always interference by studios and shit like that, but it was just a mess. It was just messy, stupid, and like when I left the movie, I was just like meh. Like my shoulders were slumped, and I'm just like, what the fuck? Like I want my money back. This just did not feel like a Predator movie at all. And I had the same feeling when I came out of The Last Jedi, actually. But again, that's a totally different story for another day. Same principle though. I don't know about how you guys felt afterwards.
Yeah, I felt the same. Not about The Last Jedi though, but we'll talk about that later.
Oh, another time. And UTA, like, because this feels like a franchise killer. Do you think like any other franchises have, for some reason, have just bit the dust? Because a good friend of mine told me this. He didn't like The Last Jedi. He didn't like Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull.
Well, I again, with what Goddard said, The Last Jedi, it's probably a discussion for another time. But um, I think also for franchise killers, apart from Terminator 3 and then Genesis
Oh,
afterwards,
forgot about
um,
that.
yeah, they're also franchise killers. But I'm not going to say this movie has killed the franchise yet. I think there's still a little bit of hope, and I'm hoping that someone with the right mindset and the actual heart to do it correctly can do it right.
It's wishful thinking though, because after that, I was just so deflated. Like, I'm actually kind of tired of going to movies and just coming out deflated. But then again, 7 billion people on this earth, only a small bunch of people would not appreciate a movie for what it's worth, or they don't see what other people are seeing. It's the beauty of being different. But for me, for this one, I was just like, 8 years since the last Predators movie. We're not even counting AVP Requiem or AVP. 8 years since that one where they were all transported off to the gaming reserve, the Predators gaming reserve, and we got this. Like, holy shit!
That was a good film. I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah, it's it kind of makes this film. No, it this film makes that film look very sheepish. Like that Predators one with Danny Trejo and all those other characters, Walton Goggins. Um, I think that's his name. I may have mispronounced it. That's Die Hard compared to like this.
Yeah, definitely. I would be very happy if somebody did pick up the scraps and fix it, but you know, it is a bit of wishful thinking.
Yeah, like even if like just someone decided to just do a movie adaptation of the very first comic, which just to give a quick summary, just takes place of Arnold Schwarzenegger's original character in the first film, and like the storyline was that his brother's a detective in New York, and a new predator arises there, and it becomes between the brother of the original and that. That to me could potentially be a bit of a saving grace for it.
Wasn't the brother supposed to be? Was he in the video game?
Never got my hands on the video game, but I did read the first comic that was released afterwards because I remember the original idea behind the first comic was supposed to be a direct sequel and follow Arnold Schwarzenegger's character afterwards working in the public office, but then they decided to do a creative rechange and instead do his brother, and it still worked out for me. If they did an adaptation of that storyline, to me that would kind of work a lot better.
Because I know with the AVP franchise, the at the time it's famously known that when they released an arcade video game, Alien vs Predator, and it's like that hack, it's that 4 person or 2 person beat 'em up game, where it's two predators and two humans, one Japanese girl because it's Capcom, and the other guy, which was a sort of this military guy who was supposed to be Dutch Schaefer's brother, and he's got like a metallic arm, really big arm that's used for punching and shit. But it also turns into like a machine gun. And they wanted to release like an AVP movie, I believe, with along the premise of having Dutch Schaefer's brother involved, not as a detective, but as another sort of military guy. But he loses his arm to something, and then he gets this experimental arm thing, and that's why he gets the machine gun. So, either way, even though that's AVP, I would have thought that yeah, there's got to be God, there would have been some better story arcs, and the one that you mentioned sounded really good. But because I know Schwarzenegger declined coming back to this movie, or coming into this movie because apparently his cameo was a very small, and b he didn't like the script, so he was like fuck it, and he did the same thing to Predators 8 years ago. He's like, no, I don't want to be in a cameo. I want to be in it, but if I'm in it, it's got to be a good story. And apparently, he just fucking hated the story.
Fair enough.
I think that statement just says it all. If Arnie rejected it, probably should never have released it.
That's the thing, yeah. And I remember that this had some issues with coming out. Like apparently, the script was leaked, and the script was just fucking garbage. And then obviously they had to do reshoots. I mean, does anybody remember seeing the leaked photos of the Predators in an APC and they were being chummy with a bunch of humans?
No, I didn't.
I did not either, and
Yeah.
I really want to see that now.
Yeah,
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 that
yeah.
sounds very good.
Yeah. You just type it up like on set photos, Predators in APC or some shit, and you'll see them like hamming it up. And then I don't know if that was going to probably enhance the movie. I don't know. It's hard to say now that we have the finished product, but just the thing is, this movie is such a mess. It is so messy. Like it's just all over the place. I've just never. It kind of reminded me. Yeah, again, I have to go back to the Last Jedi. The Last Jedi just was just messy for me. But anyway, I want to get I just want to say, or I want to ask you guys what would be your recommendation for this movie? I wouldn't say out of stars or out of five or whatever. Just a brutal, honest opinion. Like, how should I put it? I want to narrow it down. Like, rent it, buy it, or chuck it. We'll start off with you, Goddard.
I would chuck it.
Yeah, UTK.
Honestly, I would buy it personally because, as I said at the start, for a sci-fi action, it wasn't that bad, but for a franchise, it was dreadful. So I would buy it, but I would not sit it next to the other Predator movies I own.
Yeah, because I don't know if you'd agree with me on this. For me, my listing for, and this is again take away AVP because they're rubbish, um, but they're actually pretty good compared to this one. Now that I think about it, that's saying something. But out of the Predator movies, my from best to worst is Predator One, Predator Two, literally chronological order. Predators, and then this one would rank the lowest.
I would agree with that, but my list, I would put Predator 2 first, but that's only because of my love for Bill Paxton and that scene where Glover and the Predator are leaning off the ceiling. And I can't remember what Glover says, but he makes a reference to the situation they're in, and the Predator literally responds with "shit happens" in perfect English, and I, to this day, has always been my favorite movie scene.
Okay, pussy face. It's your move. Shit happens.
Oh, because he's like, that's really funny because I think he says something like, he's like, all right. He's like, all right now, pussy face, it's your move. And he's like, shit happens. And then I looked at the face, I'm like, wait, it does look like a vagina.
Exactly.
It really does. I'm like, Danny Glover, damn man, that's savage.
That's ruined a lot of things for me.
No. If you watch that scene, it actually does look like a vagina. I'm just like, oh, okay. It's like, hey, Danny
Alright,
boy.
sure.
But only Glover could pull that off.
Yeah, only Danny Glover could pull that off. Yeah, it's so funny now that I think about it. But yeah, I think that's what he says. He's like, all right, now what do we do now, pussy face? And he's like, shit happens. And then he just chops off his arm and he falls. Okay, for me, I can't believe TK. You said that you'd buy it. For me, it's an instant chuck. Like I would just chuck this movie. Ridiculous. And I'm gonna say it on record. I reckon the AVP movies are better than this.
I agree, but I actually do enjoy the AVP movies.
Maybe the second one, Requiem, because that was actually really fucking badass. And apparently that predator's name was Wolf. But the first one with the really chunky predators, like they're young and they're roided up or some shit, was just
Yeah, it was a little strange.
like chunky predators.
Chucky. But no, like my buy approach really only hits because of what happened when I walked out the cinema. Because when we went in, there were two dads that had their two sons with them, and as they walked out, the kids were talking about how much they enjoyed it. And to me, that was good because like I don't want the younger generation hating everything and despising everything because they don't really appreciate the originality. They're too young for it. But I enjoy seeing, younger kids enjoy things. So for me, a buy factor for me would just fall for future kids to show them, where the movies have come from to get to where they are.
Because interesting enough, if you saying that's what you saw, does that mean that this movie speaks towards the time of the generation that are below us?
It could be, and that's probably like the approach they've taken. So for a new generation, yeah, they might appreciate it, but at the same time, does to me, I think the current generation needs to see the originals first before they can actually say yes or no as to whether it's good.
Yeah, that's a tough one because can't control the kids, and kids these days are like, I can't believe I'm saying that. I'm like kids these days. Like but you're probably right. Like if I was back at their age now and watching it, because I really wish I could have gauged some of the kids that were, I think, in our cinema. There was like 4 kids there, 4 guys, but I couldn't gauge what they were saying. I was just literally just going, what the fuck was that? Just let's just get out of the cinema. I was that like disappointed with it. I'm just like, oh.
Well, like good examples to give is like, imagine if a kid's first Star Wars movie was Episode 1. They're going to grow up loving that movie, even though the rest of us wish it never existed.
Which is a really good point because when people are were ragging hard on Jar Jar Binks, 2001, I was just in high school, and I had no issues with Jar Jar Binks. To this day, I have no issue with Jar Jar Binks, and the hate or the real weird crappings of people on the first three episodes, I just had no issues. So yeah, I think that's relatable in terms of age. Um, but even so, like I grew up with like Predator 1 and Predator 2. Yes, I was initially scared. Yes, it was mysterious. Yes, it was gory. With the head choppings and all that stuff. And the spine ripping because Bill Paxton copped it in number 2. Yikes. Um, and then I just saw them for what they were. It was the Predator was mysterious. He was from another world. He was scary. He had these dreadlocks or whatever, and it, it was a a character to be feared because you don't want to be hunted by that because that's just I don't know. It's just it's terrifying. And then with Predators, yeah, still terrifying. Still had that same mood and no issues. No real issues. I don't think they were probably very minor. But this movie, oh, like Predators are just like now not to be feared. Because there's another thing as well. Do you realize how close the Predator was when he was on that car ride and he picks up Nettles, the guy that gets cut up in half at the end, and then he motions them to put down their gun. Like they did you see how close they were to the car?
Like physically, or
Physically.
I hadn't really paid much close attention to that one, to be honest.
They were like ridiculously close, and I'm just like, and just like when they're trying to back up and stuff, I'm like, you're not even you're not even at a good distance to shoot and stuff. Like, you don't look as if like fear has struck you or something. It just felt like the aura or that mysteriousness or that fear factor. It's just like, oh, it's just an alien. Oh, I don't know. I maybe I'm looking into it a bit too hard, but I just felt as if like it wasn't scary. Like and apparently this was supposed to be the reshoots were supposed to make the Predator look more scary, and I'm like, not really for me.
Maybe he had a pink bow in his hair in the past.
Uh,
Maybe, maybe I don't know. I don't know, man. It's just such a oh, I kind of just wish I got my money back.